Hey, it's Father Steve, Episcopal priest serving here in the Episcopal Diocese of Maryland. Those who are used to me recording the study of the book of Revelation, I'm normally in the recording studio recording the last 16 chapters of the study of the book of Revelation. Today I'm in my home office. I was going to try pan my camera in a little bit so you can't see how junky my home office study is, but it definitely is. I think they say a dirty office is a working office. Um, well, I'm looking around here, and it's pretty much like that. So, yeah, so there's many things going on why I'm not in the recording studio today. One of them is, I'll time this video. We're having a lot of snow in our area, and a lot of things that have to be done close to home for shoveling snow and all that before I can venture out. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at Revelation Bible Study, chapter 17. So go ahead and read chapter 17 of Revelation, and you can pause the video as you do this in a group study, and then come back. But go ahead and read chapter 17 of Revelation. Okay, welcome back. So, my notes on chapter 17, then we'll go into what N.T. Wright has to say, some very strong words that he uses to describe chapter 17. So, I'll give you a warning on that before we get into his book. So, the fall of Babylon, which we know is Rome. Verse 1, the great harlot, Babylon, the antithesis of the woman personifies the people of God, is here characterized as a harlot for the first time. Verse 2, committed fornication. This explains why Rome deserves the title harlot. The kings of the earth are the governments of subject nations. And then we look at verse 3, the scarlet beast. As we know, we went through, John's referring to Rome. Verse 3, into a wilderness. The desert was traditionally the habitat of unclean animals. And we look back when Jesus baptized and he was sent into the desert, the things that he went up against while he was in the desert. Verse 5, on her forehead was customary with Roman harlots writing their names on their foreheads. Okay. In verse 6, we look at the blood of martyrs, possibly those who were persecuted under Nero's persecution. Verse 8, the beast now represents the Emperor Nero, commonly expected to return to life and power. And we see that in verse 11 of chapter 17. And in verse 15, the waters that you saw, the multitude of peoples over whom Roman domination extends. Now, we'll get into N.T. Wright's book, and there's some strong words used here. So if you have young children in the room, you don't want to explain what this term he's using. You might want to have them have a setup to go outside and play or whatever. Okay. So anyway, he titles chapter 17 in his book right here, "The Monster and the Whore." I remember my excitement when, as a boy, I learned to read a map. Someone had given me a Maps Made Easy sort of book, which explained how all the symbols work. I remember being especially fascinated by the contour lines. Growing up as I did in a part of the country with plenty of hills to climb, I loved to imagine the gentle slopes with spaced out contours and the steep or even sheer sides of the hill where the contours were so close together that there seemed to be no space, and sometimes indeed was no space between them. And then there were the forests, the churches, the post offices, and so on, all picked out with their own symbols, own little symbols. Now, of course, you can go online and switch to and fro from a traditional style of map to an aerial photograph and back again. That makes it easy, though no less fun. But the need for symbolic designs has not gone away, and the need to be able to interpret them remains. Of course, if sometimes climbing a hill were subject to that there were no contour lines on the hill itself, we would explain that these were merely map makers' symbols to tell you something about the reality not actual representations of what you find when you get there, when you got there. I doubt if anyone actually does make that mistake. But people frequently make the equivalent mistake when faced with a bit of apocalyptic decoding, such as we find in the present passage. John has already given us a symbolic picture of the monster and the whore. Now he's going to tell us, unusually for him, what it all means step by step. But will it work? Will we be able to see, as it were, the contour lines when we get to them? Okay, kind of an icebreaker question that he has. Do you enjoy working puzzles, decoding symbols, or deciphering codes? Why or why not? Now, I know there's some people in the two congregations I serve love doing uh, puzzles, you know, jigsaw puzzles where putting puzzles together, and they enjoy doing that. But do you enjoy working puzzles, decoding symbols, or deciphering codes? Do you enjoy doing that? Why or why not? Okay, so let's go into the first question here. Read Revelation chapter 17, verses 1 through 8. Whose judgment does the angel invite John to observe next? Whose judgment does the angel invite John to observe next? All right, second question. Here's that strong word. Why is the image of the whore or harlot used to describe Babylon and the system it represents? Remember, Babylon is Rome. Why is the image of the whore, harlot, used to describe Babylon and the system it represents? Okay, third question here. This terrifying multi-layered denunciation of the outwardly delightful and inwardly deceitful city ought to give pause for serious thought to all those of us who live within today's glossy Western culture, and all others who look on and see our glitzy world from afar. Where are we in this picture? Now, this may generate a lot of discussion. Where are we in this picture? Okay, we good? Moving on. Babylon has worshipped idols, the quick fix pseudo divinities that promise the earth, take all you have to give, and then leave you with nothing. What are the life draining effects of serving false gods today? So, what are the life draining effects of serving false gods today? I can think of a lot of things that tend to draw us away from the Lord, tend to draw us away from worship, tend to draw us away from church. Okay, we ready? Now, looking at verse 6. What does it mean? Now, I'm going to use that term he uses in the book, the whore. If you want, I'll go and change it to harlot. Let's do that. What does it mean that the harlot has become drunk with the blood of God's people? So I'm going to start using harlot, okay? Just in case children walk back into the room. Or maybe you just don't like hearing that term, but I'm just using it because that's what he uses. To be true to his book and his questions, okay? What does it mean that the harlot has become drunk with the blood of God's people? And that's in verse 6. Okay? Now we're going to move on to verse 7 through 8. And I'm changing that to harlot, all right? Just let you know, I'm changing what he says to harlot. What does it mean that the monster carries the harlot of Babylon and gives her power? And we look at verse 7 through 8. Okay, moving right along. Read Revelation 17, verses 9 through 18. What explanation does the angel offer for the identity of the 7 heads and 10 horns first mentioned in verse 7? What explanation does the angel offer for the identity of the 7 heads and 10 horns first mentioned in verse 7? And as you go through this Bible study, it's always good to have one that's got a commentary below it. It really does help. and use multiple Bibles, but to use a commentary below it. And as you go through, I have multiple Bibles on my left shoulder, and I have St. Jerome's biblical commentary down here on the floor, and I have a bunch of books behind me and a lot of dust. Okay. Looking at verses 12 through 14. What do the 10 kings do first in verses 12 through 14? What do the 10 kings do first? So a lot of these questions are back and forth, but some of them, do generate discussion as we went back further in our study today. Now, this next question deals with poetic justice. In what way might we describe the next action of the 10 kings? And that's verses 15 through 18. In what way might we describe the next action of the 10 kings as poetic justice? All right. A couple more questions here. Now, here's one might generate some discussion. What examples can you think of in which evil ended up destroying itself recently? I'll repeat that. And what examples can you think of in which evil ended up destroying itself recently? All right, moving along. What encouragement and hope do you find in this chapter, and why? So what encouragement and hope do you find in chapter 17, and why do you find it? Okay, now this last question, kind of a little intro, but then there is a question at the end of that. The abiding overriding lesson for the church then and now should be clear. The brutal but seductive civilizations and national empires which ensure the world by promising luxury and delivering slavery gain their power from the monster, the system of imperial power. Some have called this the domination system, a system which transcends geographical and historical limitations and reappears again and again in every century. John's readers already know that this system itself gains its power from the dragon, the accuser, the Satan. How might we help those who suffer under the afflictions of the world systems? How might we help those who suffer under the afflictions of the world systems? So this question here may encourage you to go outside your box with a lot of things. How you think about things, how you think about worldly things, how you think about things in our country. So it may cause you to maybe take step outside your box and be kind to each other in this discussion on this question about world systems. Okay, because I know we don't all agree on everything. Okay, now we're going to go back to, I'm going to close off this study of chapter 17 of Revelation, and we'll go back to a note about the 7 heads and all that. So this may help clarify if you already have not already read this and kind of look at the commentary to figure out what's going on. So the question is, what do the 7 heads and 10 horns on the monster first mentioned in 17 verse 3 represent? So John's first clue is straightforward. The 7 heads are 7 hills on which the woman sits. No problem. There really are 7 hills in Rome. I've been up them. And everybody in the ancient world who knew anything about Rome knew that this was so. The 7 kings may represent the 7 Roman emperors from Augustus to Otho during whose reign John may have been writing. Nero was 5th. But more likely the kings are symbolic, 7 representing perfection. The 7 kings then stand for the apparent perfection of the monstrous kingdom, with the 8th, though one of the 7, a king who will appear to take the kingdom forward into a new day, but who will instead lead it to its destruction. John is saying the monstrous kingdom looks perfect and impregnable, but forces from within its own ranks will destroy it. It is likely that the additional 10 kings are also part of the monstrous system, different ruling elites within the larger Roman Empire. So, kind of thought about the questionnaire. One of the things that cause a lot of problems in systems and any kind of system, even within the church, power, how power is abused, and how systems are corrupted by power. And so there we go. Again, Father Steve, Episcopal priest serving here in Episcopal Diocese of Maryland. I'm not in my recording studio. I'm in my home study office at my house. Kind of busy schedule this week, and I'm trying this, and hopefully you are okay with me not being in the recording studio. So God bless. See if I can shut this off. Maybe not. I'll just stand up.